Hello everyone, welcome back to Beyond the Veil Tarot and Astrology. My name is Candice Marie. Happy early weekend, happy Friday night. I hope you guys are doing well. I'm excited to be doing live readings on the channel this evening. So if you can see me, do me a favor, give me a thumbs up, like the stream so it lets other people know that we are live. How's everybody doing? I see that we've got some people who are already in the chat. What's up, Coco? Hey, Ness, Ann, and Zika, Laura, Holly. How's it going, guys? Do me a favor. Make sure you click the button below and you are subscribed, especially if you're new to my channel. If this is the first time that you're joining me for a live video, drop a comment down below in the chat. Say hello. So it is Friday night, which means we're going to be doing our live readings. And we're coming in hot to that Capricorn full moon. So if anybody has particular questions in regards to their chart, this is how it works. So there's a QR code somewhere around here. You're going to scan that QR code and it is going to take you to my PayPal where you can make a donation for your reading. It is very important that you include this information. So please include your name, especially if it differs from your YouTube name, along with your date of birth. So I need the month, day, and year, the exact time with the AM or the PM, the city, state, and country if you're not here in the United States. Please spell out the month if you are from another country. We do it a little bit different here in the United States. And that way I can make sure that I have the accurate time. I'm going to cast your chart live and we're going to take a look at your question. And that's basically how it works. So make sure you put that information in the memo. And to those of you guys who don't have PayPal, we also have Super Chat. And I know that we already have a number of people, but I did want to check in and see, is there anybody who is level 3 that's here who has not cashed in on your reading for the month? Obviously, we got lucky. There was 5 weeks this month, so it's been a bit of a busy month. I saw that Coco popped in here. What's up, Coco? It looks like we got you here the 2nd week of June. Technically the first one that I was here. So if you want to come back next week for a reading or the next astrology in 2 weeks, I'm happy to read for you. Not many people know that I have memberships on my channel. So if you guys like my content, if you like the horoscopes, all the long format stuff that I put out, the full moon reports, the astro weather, you can support my work by joining one of my memberships and making a monthly donation. With the level 3, you're going to get a reading once a month. Pretty sweet deal. But if you aren't a member, that's okay. You can help in other ways, like giving me a thumbs up, sharing this stream, or liking it. And when you guys get a reading, just as a reminder, it's $55 donation for one question, and it's going to be $70 for Synastry. And I need all of that information. We've got some new people who are here. What's going on? Hey, Rome. Queen of Wands. Hello. Navarro. Katarina. Hi. What's up, Ben? Can we rejoice that Neptune is finally retrograde? Yes, as long as we can see it clearly. What's up, Awakened? Hey, Dave. Hey, Sonia. How's everybody doing? So we're going to be doing live readings. As a reminder for you guys, this is live, so everybody's going to be seeing what we're talking about, what you're asking. Please be specific and ask a question about one particular transit or aspect in your natal chart. Those of you guys who don't specify, I'll give you an opportunity to chime in and ask your question. Otherwise, we're going to talk about the full moon. And there's lots of people here that don't usually make it. So hello. I know we've got people in all different time zones, so it's kind of cool to be able to see people who can pop in when they can. Let me do a little bit of a roll call to let you guys know who I already have. So we've got Nearman, Rome, Demos. We've got Lorena, Jessica Z, Minod, and Anne. So if you guys want to just hang tight for a little bit, we'll be getting to you and I will give you a heads up who is next on the list. And usually we'll leave the, the window open for, 20 minutes or so if you guys want to sign up. And those of you guys who are just popping in, please give me a thumbs up so that way the stream gets out there to the YouTubes. I would appreciate it. And we have this full moon that's going to be here in Capricorn. It's going to be at 11 degrees. So if you have any personal placements, let's say about 9 to 12 degrees of Capricorn, sun, moon, or rising, it is pretty prominent for you. I want to let you guys know something. Nobody knows yet, so I'll tell you guys because it's going to come out more on Sunday. You can't really see it, but it's behind me. But I just launched a brand new candle line, so I'm really excited about that. I'm going to be putting that out on the full moon. But if you guys are looking for magical intention candles, I have a brand new line of candles that are coming out, new and full moon, and magical intention candles for like love and intuition and healing and all that good stuff. So if you're into all that witchy stuff, check it out. We'll put a link at some point in the show, but nobody really knows that they're out yet. So I'm letting you guys know early. Trying to put new products on the shop. We've got all kinds of cool stuff coming between now and the end of the year. We're going to do another 2024 calendar, an astrology calendar. We've got some other extra goodies and things that we're going to be dropping. So if you do go to my website, make sure you sign up for my newsletter. I'm not going to spam you. You're only going to get emails when we have new stuff coming out, like courses or products. But if that's some stuff that you guys like, check it out. All right, so let's go ahead and get into it. I saw Coco snuck in there. So I got you, Coco. Thanks for being a level 3 member. Let me pull your chart up. And I do have your question. Okay. And I want to make sure I have the right info here. Can you confirm your birth information for me, Coco? There we go, December 1st, 89. Thank you, you're all over it. Let's see. All right. Thanks, Roma. Appreciate it. Thanks, Anne. When you do, make sure you send your info so I can get your birth info. Cool. All right, so I'll do another roll call in just a minute. If you guys sent that, don't worry, I'll let you know. Let's go ahead and start with Coco's question. She chimes in saying, looking to this moon as it's my natal one, general advice for the immediate future with emphasis on love, but open. I like it. Okay, so here's the deal. Obviously, if you are a Capricorn moon, especially somewhere around those degrees, so it's within a 10-degree orb, it's close, but it's not right on top. Something else that I would recommend doing, if this is something that you're into, if you like cast charts and stuff, you can do this on astro.com. I would recommend looking at your lunar return because the lunar return is going to give you more insight in terms of how it's almost going to feel like a full moon energy that's going to be playing out all month long. So your lunar return happens every 28 days. A full moon in Capricorn obviously is going to be about like commitment, like fulfilling your goals, seeing things coming, you know, full circle. So that's going to be the theme that you're going to see generally. But for you, Coco, it's highlighting this natal moon that you have in your 10th house. So the actual full moon is going to be at 11 degrees. Which basically means you're having the full moon in your 10th house, which deals with your career and anything in regards to your goals, your public image, things that you're hoping to like make public. Now, I'm not surprised that you're also kind of curious about love. I think part of the reason why this is coming up for you is also because that full moon is going to be pretty close to your natal Venus, okay, here at 24 degrees. So Venus can be about relationships, but it can be more about where am I going long term? Like, what are people seeing? Like, what am I putting out there? Like, really looking for commitment and something that's going to like endure, that's going to like stay, right? Now your relationships are more in relation to Mercury because Mercury rules your 7th house. So we look at what's going on with Mercury during this particular full moon. Well, there's some interesting stuff here. Mercury is still in a sextile to Jupiter. So there is this sense of being more positive and optimistic about what the future holds. Mercury is hanging out in your 4th house. So it's about your emotions. It's about your home. It's about your family. And it's not unusual when you see like Mercury and the Sun in the 4th house that you're reevaluating your emotions, you're reevaluating the past. We don't quite see any other significant aspects involving Mercury. However, Mercury will make sextiles to Uranus shortly after the full moon, so there can be sudden opportunities and changes with relationships. And I noticed that the full moon is really close to your natal Jupiter. So you're born in 1989 like me, exalted Jupiter in Cancer, and you've got Jupiter actually in opposition to your moon. So I would imagine that even though you have like a really good game face, like all that, like Sag and Capricorn, you know, at the top part of your chart, which can seem very tough. It can seem kind of old school. It can seem very traditional. Having this Jupiter in Ceres and Chiron in the 4th house is like kind of like mush on the inside. It's really emotional. It's really sensitive. So I think something about this full moon is also going to highlight and bring up themes revolving around who you are out in the world versus what you want or feel like you need internally. And being that it's going to be the Sun and Mercury in close alignment with your natal Jupiter is important because Jupiter is also like, you know, your traditional chart ruler. So to me, it seems like it's about trying to find more or better balance between your private life and your professional life. When will you see significant changes in regards to relationships? You want to look at progress Venus, obviously that's a big one, but another one is just transits that are impacting your natal Mercury. So in my mind, you know, the way that I kind of see this is like while dating and romance is possible as planets are going into your 5th house in the next month, there's going to be more emphasis, I think, when we start to see like retrogrades in your 7th and making decisions about whether or not you reconnect with people or if you're open to dating. That'll be happening in September. And keep in mind that over the next 2 years, more so 2024 and 2025, Saturn's going to start coming into a square with Mercury, which means that there's going to be this theme revolving around where are my boundaries? What do I need? You know, how do I feel being on my own? Am I seeing eye to eye with relationships with others? Some would argue from a whole sign perspective, Sag, you know, is your 10th house. So it doesn't have to be about romantic relationships. It can be about relationships with like coworkers and people professionally. But I think that when you start seeing some trines and some, you know, activations either to your 7th house or your 7th house cusp, that's when things are going to change. And so I do think you're going to see a pretty big shift, more so going into the beginning of next year as Jupiter and Uranus come together and they start trining your 7th house. But can a full moon in the same sign as your Venus bring the potential for romance and relationships? Yes, it can. But I think it's going to highlight that natal opposition that you have with like Jupiter, where if you get too top heavy with all of this like out in the world, work, professional stuff, and you're not taking time to also focus on romance and, you know, expansion in regards to your personal relationships and like really doing that work emotionally, you'll start to kind of feel the imbalances, right? And so something else you have working in your favor over the next like year or two is you start to see Jupiter and Uranus trine your Venus. I also think that's going to open things up and make it more likely that you're going to be able to have like new relationships and things coming in. It could be with groups. It doesn't necessarily have to be romantic. Believe it or not, like romantic love is more the 5th house. So something that you do have kind of going on this summer is I noticed that when Venus retrogrades at the end of July, it's going to be in conjunction to your South Node. So you're reevaluating like what relationships are good for me and which ones do I cut loose. It can also be about finding like relationships that are kind of out of balance. And there can be a sense of reevaluating or reviewing past romantic relationships. So that's also going to get quite interesting because Venus will actually drop back down into your Placidus 5th house. And I would just say, just be on the lookout, be mindful that it is possible you can kind of hear from the past, and that, you know, it can come knocking, especially when it's on your South Node. And that's going to be somewhere around like the August 13th to 15th. And then Venus drops back into your 5th house, and that's going to be at the end of August. And so it will stay there for a hot minute. It's not going to leave until mid-September. So you're going to have like a nice like 2-3 weeks there where Venus is like, you know, finally coming out of her retrograde. She's hanging out in the 5th house. You're going to be having new moons, and also you're going to be having eclipses taking place in your 7th house. So I really think like the best relationship stuff can grow in September and October as a result of being like, how can I make more time for love? How can I focus more on being able to have more of that balance? And obviously it's so challenging when you have a lot of planets in the 10th house, because it's just like, that's your MO, right? Just going out there and just being like the boss. And when you have planets in the Capricorn kind of Cancer axis. I have the same opposition as you. Venus in Scorpio as well. There was a Venus retrograde just shortly after we were born, actually, at the beginning of 1990. So we also kind of have our Venus kind of in the shadow of that retrograde. And it's flipped. My Jupiter's in the 10th house and my Venus is in the 4th. So I know, I know exactly how that stuff works. We have to learn to do both, right? Hopefully that's helpful in giving you some insight into what's coming with this particular full moon. And just know that right after we have the full moon, I talk about this in my my monthly. You'll hear this on Astro Weather on Sunday. But just after the full moon, we're actually going to see the moon come into contact with Pluto. Okay, it's going to oppose Mercury. It's going to come into contact with Pluto, and then it's going to square the nodes. So the 3rd and the 4th of July are rather intense. Actually, this is a full moon that will just keep, it'll just keep coming. It's just going to keep serving up the lessons. So be mindful that it doesn't have to be that exact day. It will actually be like a day or two after that we're really going to feel the pinch of like what we need to be changing. All right, so good luck with that. Hopefully it goes well. We've got Nerman and Rome and Demos. You guys are on deck. So let me pull this question here. Looks like July 3rd, 85. So it's almost your birthday. My solar return happens a few hours after this full moon, so it's a big deal for me. A general interpretation of what the energies are for me in the full moon given my house placements. So I got you on that. Let's take a look. Looks like that gives you a Libra rising, a sun in Cancer, and a moon in Capricorn. And yes, you want to know about a full moon on your birthday. Of course you do. And on top of that, you have Pluto on your moon. So if you're watching this live in the chat, how are you feeling? It looks like you're like hanging out or like hosting Hades in your home right now. That's a lot. And that's also going to be factored into your solar return. So let me put the transits on the outside so you can see what I'm talking about. Otherwise, I just look crazy. You got a lot of like Pluto stuff happening right now. So I want to just talk about that really quick before we get into the full moon. But essentially, a full moon on your birthday is significant because you're having like a completion. So it's a year where everything is going to feel bigger, fuller. It's a climax. There's things that are going to be kind of coming out into the open that are completing, or it feels big, right? And the full moon also represents polarity. So it's that 180-degree opposition. So it does talk a lot about relationships. So it can be a lot of like relational things that are kind of going on. For starters, probably like the big thing is that, you know, you're having this Pluto conjunct your moon, and it's in the midst also of the nodal squares. So if you see the south node, which is in Scorpio, and the north node, which is in Taurus, I'm like all over the place, it's in Taurus. It's coming into a square. So I'm sure I'm throwing a lot at you, but this basically tells me that somehow factored into your solar return this year, you're going to have a situation where you're going to be like, this area of my life has to change, right? This must change. So what happens when Pluto is conjunct the moon, right? We move out of homes and go through some big home transition. We have an intense interaction with a relative or a woman or, you know, a mother figure. We demolish and rebuild and renovate an old house. That kind of stuff. And it's intense because Pluto wants to bring intensity, and Pluto in your chart rules money and resources. So it seems like there's a huge focus and you're putting a lot of power into How can I change my resources? How can I change my living situation? Is there power struggles in regards to, property or issues with money with the family? Okay, so something like that's kind of brewing. At the same time, you also have the South Node coming into conjunction with your Pluto. So this is a lot of Pluto activations for you. It tells me that there is a sense of kind of like letting go and letting God and being like, there are some things I can't change. I have to accept endings and, appreciate the fact that it's kind of more or less like creating, it's like adding manure to soil, right? And it's nurturing and nourishing the soil so something new can grow. So you got to deal with some crap this year, basically. South Node Pluto is also, I have found when I went through that transit, it was being like, I need to let all of this stuff go. And the things that I was fixating on or the things that I was doing that was not positive, I was just like, okay, it's got to go. So I hope that you're having a positive experience with that. The South Node will be off of your Pluto soon. And then finally, you have the North and the South Node, not just squaring, but you have transit Pluto squaring Pluto. So it's like, the universe is not going to let you get a pass, babe. Okay, that's the one thing that I'll tell you. It's just not going to happen. You got way too many Pluto aspects. And where there's crisis, there's opportunity to be like, okay, like it's on to the next thing. Like, let's start over. Okay, so full moon on your birthday. This is going to be highlighting the themes of the moon in the 4th house and the sun connecting to the 10th house. So once again, that dynamic between, what am I taking care of and doing out in the world? What am I nurturing? Who am I nurturing? What is my responsibility versus what's going on at home? And I would imagine with other things that you've got going on in your chart right now, like Uranus in opposition to Saturn, you're having some things going on where you're having some wild upheaval with relationships. And I don't know if it's you realizing that some family karma or family issues or emotional turmoil is kind of replaying that's similar to what you might have dealt with as you were younger out in relationships. I don't know if it's that you're having to kind of confront certain relatives and family members and be like, this isn't working for me anymore. I don't know if there are sudden changes going on in relationships because Uranus is sudden and it's in opposition to your Saturn. And you have South Node Saturn square your Mercury. So you're not a fan of change, right? You got a lot of fixed placements that square each other. I think I would give you the same advice that I would give to any late Libra rising, early Scorpio rising, which would be embrace the changes that are happening with relationships in your 7th house and the willingness to call some people out on their shit and be like, this is not working, but also embrace letting people help you. So 7th house can be counselors, therapists, it can be new romantic partners, new business partners. And being that your 7th house cusp is Aries, you need people who are gonna kind of give you a little tough love. And also embrace the fact that you're gonna go through a huge change, probably with your career also over the summer. And then finally, the fact that you're going to see Pluto go back into your 3rd house, still sitting on your IC, once again, changing things going on with your home, but it's changing the way that you think. It's changing the way that you communicate. It's changing the mind. And it tells me that you might realize this relationship with my sibling and the way we communicate doesn't work, or this neighborhood isn't working. You might start seeing that there's issues with crime in your neighborhood with Pluto in the 3rd, and then it prompts you to want to make a change in your living situation. I've been through these transits. I'm an early degree Libra rising. I remember everything that was happening when this was going on. I promise you it gets better. But I think it's so intense because Pluto is on your moon and you're realizing that you can take these tendencies to want to help nurture people and do it out in the world and help other people work through change, transformation, or crisis rather than dealing with the family drama. Does that make sense? That's kind of the vibe that I'm getting. I also love the fact that your birthday is going to be taking place with this Kazemi that's kind of brewing right now. So it's your birthday's coming in, there's a Kazemi where there's some profound realizations and epiphanies and you're tapping into some stuff. And it's also going to be bringing up the fact that you're either traveling or you're learning something this year, because the 9th house is about the connection to God. It's our philosophies, our beliefs, and the 3rd house is how we communicate. So it looks like there's something going on there as well. But a full moon birthday, you will find that all year it is like, okay, we're wrapping this up, and then there's this big, thing that's moving forward. Like big changes are going to be happening. And I would embrace some of this change as best as you can, knowing that once Pluto gets back into Aquarius, things are going to start getting a little bit easier, and you're not going to be getting hit as much with the conjunctions, but you are still going to be in Pluto square Pluto. So you're totally changing and transforming something about your home base and how you relate to family members. And that also is redefining something about your relationships, if that makes any sense. But there's definitely a lot of stuff that's going on here. So that will all be packed into your solar return. It may be worth casting your solar return chart and looking at that to see what houses all of that kind of falls into, if that makes sense. And one thing I'll also say is your birthday this year, obviously you're going to be 38, so you're going into a Sagittarius Jupiter year, and that is the 3rd house for you, whole sign. So Jupiter is your time lord, and you've got Jupiter that is technically hanging out in your whole sign 8th. This is a technique called annual perfections. So this tells me it's going to be about how maybe there will be like talk therapy. Maybe you're going to be thinking about transforming something in regards to your resources. Maybe you're refinancing something. Maybe you're looking at loans. Maybe you're looking at getting a new car. There may be some kind of business that you're thinking about doing online, 3rd house. And because you've got Jupiter in the 4th, I'm wondering, are you thinking about doing some kind of like home business? And that's maybe a good outlet for that, right? With Pluto on your moon. Definitely learn a lot about, I would say, evolutionary astrology may really interest you right now with Pluto on your moon. You may really enjoy listening to some Jeffrey Wolf Green. I know when I was in the midst of my Pluto moon stuff, it was like really helpful understanding those transits and what that was actually really doing for me on an emotional level, and how it was breaking things down, right? Because Pluto can be really intense. Hopefully that's helpful. Wishing you a happy birthday. All right, so we've got Rome. What's up? How are you? Aries rising, sun in Virgo, moon in Virgo. Help me figure out my crazy life. What's next? I had to cut my whole family off and move out of Texas back to New Mexico. I don't know if I'm safe here or what to do next. Well, we're sending you lots of good vibes in the midst of some of this stuff. So let's take a look at what you got going on here. So cutting things off, cutting things out. Obviously difficult stuff, but perfect example of, Saturn moon oppositions, keeping family at a distance, and things in regards to also challenges revolving around your home dynamic. The moon rules your 4th house of family, but it's also your home and your physical space. And Saturn is about boundaries, limitations. It's also about career. It's about work-related things. So it's like you kind of going into hermit mode with Saturn in your 12th house and being like, I need peace and I need space. That was expected. And also, seeing Saturn come into an opposition with Venus, which can be about relationships. It's clear, like with female relatives, like there's a sense of keeping people at arm's length. I also feel like it's for your mental health, for your spiritual health, because everything's going through Pisces in the 12th house. So there is this realization sometimes when we have transits in the 12th oppose the 6th, that's like, I'm not just doing it for health reasons, I'm doing it for like energy reasons. And the 6th and the 12th house is interesting because you can kind of get lost in these houses, especially when you have Virgo that is all intercepted. This is why I like Placidus, because Placidus is really shines a light on things that you don't always see with whole sign. While you have all these planets in Virgo in your 6th house, it's technically intercepted. So that means placements in Virgo and placements in Pisces almost act like a blind spot, and you can't always see what's coming or what's going. Sixth house is more tangible, physical. It also can deal with like, you know, enemies that you didn't see coming, and you might realize that you had problems with relationships with people that you didn't realize that you had. What is working in your favor is that while the Saturn opposition is difficult, Saturn is also trining your IC. And within this next year, it's going to come into a trine with your North Node. So it's almost like you have to go and kind of be MIA for a little bit and really focus on taking care of the spirit before other things kind of set up. Now, we're going to see this taking place tonight into tomorrow. The Cazimi is already happening. Mercury and the sun are in the same degrees. And Mercury is going to pull ahead of the sun. So that tells me that there is like new opportunities or breakthroughs or things that are going to be coming in regards to your living situation. It seems a little unclear right now, but I definitely feel like the full moon is going to bring this up, especially because the full moon is going to be smack dab within a degree of your South Node. And I don't know if you're like looking for work or something of that nature. But if you're looking for like a job, which then can in turn also like either pay the bills or give you a place to stay, this full moon seems to be pretty significant in this chart. Trine your Venus and your moon, trine Jupiter, and it's bringing up the axis of the 10th and the 4th. So something like that's getting set up, and the full moon trining all of your stuff to me seems really solid because it's setting up, bringing more financial stability, bringing more work and home and security through the 10th house. And it might also be about kind of closing a chapter with a parent or like with a superior of some kind. Things are difficult right now because everybody is starting to feel the nodes coming into a square with Pluto. And those of you guys who have a lot of planets that are in the cardinal signs, especially the late degrees, you're feeling it. So those of you guys born in the early 80s who may have Saturn and Pluto in the sign of Libra. So what you're going to be seeing is the South Node swing through here. And it may be like a reevaluation of certain relationships with people. It might bring a reevaluation of romantic relationships as well. Siblings get triggered a lot here. So I don't know if it's like siblings or cousins or aunts or uncles, but the Mercury Saturn is kind of a dead giveaway. And the fact that the nodes square Mercury and Saturn, and it seems like other people can be like really harsh in terms of their relationships with you and also like their communication. Yeah, difficult stuff. But as far as I'm concerned, like that full moon is pretty good. I think it's just going to be like a clearing and something that's going to help you find more stability out in the world so you can actually bring that like home and find ways to get a little bit more so stable. The Saturn opposed your moon and your Venus makes me feel inclined to tell you that there may be a period really for the rest of this year until Saturn comes out of an opposition with your Venus where you're going to be feeling like certain people have to be kept at a safe distance, right? So you can go and get things kind of stabilized, and you can also feel like you're bringing your attention back to yourself. The North Node in Aries, which is going to shift later in the month of July, is really going to be really setting you up to be like, where do I need to be? What's best for me? And not leaning into all of that Libra where you make sacrifices for relationships, or you're, you know, like being a pushover, or you're like taking other people's like crap. You're going to be like, nope, this isn't working for me. And you're going to be super focused, I think, with Chiron in the North Node and being like, yeah, I need to be healing myself. And I can't be around people who are not in balance. And a lot of it also is going to come down to your goals also in regards to like your career. I think you're going to become very self-focused, and I think you're going to become very focused in regards to where you're going with your professional life. And certain relationships are going to fall by the wayside, but that's what kind of has to happen. So, you know, I liken like Saturn in the 12th house transits is just life gets very quiet before big things happen. And so, yes, it can feel kind of lonely, but at the same time, it's creating that safe space so that way you can start kind of building and formulating the life that you do want. And also, you know, holding space when this next phase begins, which I really think you're going to start to see emerging, to be honest with you, as early as like end of October when you have eclipses in your first house, then again going into the spring of this next year. Look for the cosmic goodies with this Sun Mercury Cazimi. I don't know if like some offer in regards to a living situation or somebody who's going to pop in is about to kind of show up. And I would also encourage you to learn more about interceptions, because that's why you could have such a more challenging time with Pisces transits, because Pisces and Virgo is also like intercepted here. So the key with interceptions is once you become aware that something's intercepted, you learn how to work with it. And it seems to me like you could be like an excellent healer or trainer or physical therapist, or like somebody who's really good at like helping other people, once you better know your boundaries and your limits between the physical and the spiritual, and you realize that you can't save everyone, only people who want to be helped. If they don't want to be helped, then there is a sense of learning to kind of pull your energy in and not allowing other people to take advantage of your kindness, to be honest with you. So hopefully that's helpful for you, Rome. I know we've got some people asking about the updated list. We have last call right now. So if you want to get a reading, sign up. Here's who we have next. We've got Demos. We've got Lorena, Jessica Z, Minod, Anne. And that's who I've got. I know some other people are saying, I signed up. If you guys want to get a reading, you got to scan the QR code and make your donation, and then we're going to get you in here. How's everybody doing so far? Anybody else who's like feeling this Pluto stuff? It's gnarly, man. I was born with Pluto square the nodes, and I'm like, this is my life all the time. All right, so let's check out demos. Let's see. There we go. So I've got you here January 2nd, 1997 at 11:15 p.m. in Brooklyn. And the question is, full moon in Capricorn astrology reading. I'd like to know how I've grown since the Capricorn new moon and what this full moon has in store for me. I go by spaghetti. Now I got you. Somebody was asking about spaghetti. You're welcome, Rome. Okay, so I like the amount of Capricorns that we have in the chat. Can we just kind of give it up for all these Cap placements that are finding time out of their busy life and their work schedule to come and hang out with us on the internet and ask questions about astrology? All right, so you want to know about this full moon and how it's developing into, or I guess building off of the new moon that we had last year, and how it's kind of finishing something up for you. Okay, so I'm going to tie it all together the best way that I can. Let's actually go back and look at the new moon. Let's do that. I think a lot of people in the chat would like that as well, because I feel like people would benefit from being like, oh yeah, I started this thing back then, and like now I'm here. So we've got a new moon that took place in Capricorn. This was on December 23rd, 2022. Okay, so new moons plant seeds. This is the best way to work with new moons. When we have a new moon, it's setting up a whole new, lunation for the month. So we're going to see that new moon 2 weeks later build into a full moon. Then that full moon is going to break down into a new moon. So you've got like the immediate 2 to 4 weeks after a new moon to see the results. But if you're like a Capricorn and you're thinking long term, this was something that you're like, okay, come July of 2023, I want to be completing this thing. So think back to what was going on then. For you, that new moon was conjunct your IC, square your angles, square your nodes. You want to give us any feedback about what happened there? I guess the IC is like the most sensitive part of the chart, in my opinion, next to the moon, because it represents kind of like the womb of the natal chart. And it's the deepest place, the most private place. So to have a new moon there that squares the nodes and also all your angles and your Saturn makes me feel like you were kind of feeling a little like, okay, I got to do some cleanup in regards to my personal life, my home. I'm setting new intentions for where I want to live. I'm setting new intentions for how I want to feel. Maybe, you know, I want to redo something in my apartment. Maybe I want to, you know, be trying to save more money to move into a bigger place, to buy a house. Something intentions were set there. And because it made so many aspects in your chart, whatever was happening, it was like, okay, we're going to start new. Mental health episode, had to take time off of work and find a new therapist, but doing pretty well now. So here's the thing, right? Capricorn and Scorpio are the two signs that are most connected to control. Anybody who's got a ton of planets in Capricorn is going to be fixated on being like, everything's fine, we're good, we're working through this, no problems, like I've got it down pat. But from one fourth house stellium to another, that's not really how that works. In my opinion, like houses trump signs. You want to think of houses as the place where all of the action happens. And the sign is like the lens that you see it through, right? So the fourth house traditionally is connected to Cancer. It's traditionally connected to the moon. It is about things that are sublunar, things that happen in our sleep, things that happen in private. It's about our mental state. It's also about the past. It's about our roots, our family. So when you have a stellium of planets in Capricorn, you can act very Capricorn about it, but really the truth is this is a chart that's like very easy to fall back into patterns from the past, fixate on the past, fixate on the family. Obviously you have a lot of planets in your fourth house, so your roots, your ancestry, but also this can be your intuition and your emotions. So if what happened during this new moon was a bit of a freak out, then here we are now 6 months later, and now we're kind of realizing, okay, maybe we came to terms with what was going on, where we were too stuck on the past, where we weren't processing emotions, and now we're moving forward, and here is what we have, here's the you know, headway that we've made. The full moon is going to be obviously on your sun, okay? So it's actually going to be your sun Mercury midpoint. Midpoints are like little magical calculations that once you really start learning about astrology, it shows you things that you don't generally see with the naked eye. I can only see it because your Mercury is 10 degrees here, your sun is 12 degrees here, so the degree that's in between is 11 degrees. So that one's more obvious. Other midpoints harder to find, but don't sleep on midpoints. Mercury is about the mind and its messages. So when I see a full moon that's going to be between your sun and your Mercury, I feel inclined to tell you, like, pay attention to your dreams because Mercury is your 12th house lord. There may also be a final completion, an ending, letting something go, forgiving someone, cutting something out of your, you know, home life or out of your family life. There can be a saying goodbye to something, right? Something like that can kind of happen. Playing catch up here. Trying to clean up my room in hopes of adopting a new dog. Okay, cool. I like that. Okay, cool. So, okay, I'm caught up. And I do think that when you have a full moon that is in conjunction to your sun, it's also highlighting your sun's purpose. So if you have sun in the fourth house, it's how is your emotional health? What's your home like? What's your house like? And your fourth house Capricorn means that like everything has to be in working order. Sometimes people who have a bunch of Capricorn here work from home. Sometimes they just are kind of like creatures of habit and they like to have their house a certain way, or they want their home to be really functional, or there's a sense of them being really adamant about how they like things going on in the home. Or actually the fourth house, believe it or not, is the kitchen. So you may look around and realize like, it's time for me to organize my kitchen. I got to get everything out of these, cubbies, or I got to reorganize my cabinets, or I got to clean out my fridge. Obviously saying that you're wanting to kind of get your room in order in hopes of adopting a new dog. I like that this is in a sextile to Saturn, which is the 6th house of pets. So having a full moon here means maybe you finally do set aside time revolving around the full moon to be like, I'm going to get everything done so that way everything is functional, and not only do I have it organized, but I also have a place for the dog's things, and here's where it's going to go, and so on and so forth. So that way you can make that possible, right? So it is supported. I will tell you that the North and the South Node changing signs, you're going to see the South Node come into a conjunction with your moon, and you're going to see the North and the South Node square Pluto. So it's also pushing for there to be a home change. I wonder how many other Libra risings are here that are feeling that. I've heard crazy stories like this whole last week, people who are like, my roommate up and left, or like, you know, I have to go and be with my mom, or like I've heard other things where people are like saying that, you know, they're finding out that their, you know, partners haven't paid the mortgage and the house is getting repossessed, like crazy stuff. So this is also pushing for a change in regards to your home life. So I would say if the house is in order, yeah, you can think about looking at adopting a pet, but I may also recommend taking a look at the home in general. Does it have everything it needs, right? Is there going to be a problem with a landlord? Is there a big enough space for the dog? Is there a backyard? Are roommates or other people living there going to be okay with you having a dog? Because there can be some drama within the home, right? So just keep that in mind. And as the South Node is swinging into your sign, I'll just go out on a limb here. You may actually feel like a little bit more emotionally secure, or you might feel better having an animal around. So it's not so much about just having a dog. I think maybe you're going to be like, okay, I may have stress, or I may have some anxiety even, and it actually helps having a pet around, right? So hopefully that's helpful in kind of letting you know how this is going to play out. But it's good to hear that you're obviously doing so much better than 6 months ago. And anytime you have like a full moon in Capricorn, it really kind of rocks your chart, you know? So there's definitely a lot of big things that are happening whenever it's in Cancer season, because it kind of lights this chart up like a Christmas tree, squaring your nodes and then opposing your fourth house. And I want you to think of like Cancer season, because it's halfway to your birthday. This is that point when you're 6 months into your solar return where you really want to reevaluate and ask yourself, do I like the direction that this year is going, right? Where can I make change? Where can I get some feedback from somewhere else or someone else? I love 6 months into my birthday year getting a reading. You know, I'm born in November, so I like to get readings in like April or May, because I feel like I'm getting that opposition, I'm getting that feedback. But if you don't like what's going on, change it. But it can also be a time where there's like big completions taking place. All right, so hopefully that's helpful for you. Let us know, circle back and let us know if you get the doggy. Let me just make sure we got everybody. Okay, cool. So we are gonna have Lorena, Jessica, Minod, and Anne, Teresa, and Milika. And some of you guys did have your info. Some of you guys didn't have your info. So like Anne and Milika, if you have it, hopefully I can find it. You're welcome, Spaghetti. People are in here talking about cookbooks, planting herbs. That sounds like fun. Lori also says she has a fourth house stellium. Ooh, Scorpio. Work from home in your kitchen. I did that for many, many years. I actually kind of prefer it. All right, so let's pull up who we have next. Lorena. All right, so she writes, Synastry, please. She's born 8/25/84 in the Bronx, and that's at 9:47. And she's got a partner that we're going to look at, but I want to see her transits first. And she says, what do I need to know or look out for, good or bad? Is it karmic? Is there a hope for a future? Been doing lots of work the last few years, and I'm not entirely confident in what the universe expects of me at this point. So here's the deal. Whenever I do Synastry is when I lay the two charts over each other so we can see how two people relate to one another, okay? But I like to look at the person's transits first to be like, what do they got going on? And so here we have another prime example of planets that are getting dinged or angles that are getting dinged by the Pluto transit. So Reina's in her Pluto square Pluto. So this is kind of like that cleaning out phase where she's like, what's working and what's not working? And it's at that critical 29 degrees. Okay, I'm going to go out on a limb here, but seeing Pluto in direct opposition to your ascendant, and also seeing Saturn in the South Node in your 7th house, like you've been kind of through the ringer relationship-wise in your life. You've gone through lots of karma and lots of like, you know, intensity in regards to of relationships, and also like learning to let go of old patterns with things that can be kind of toxic when it comes to other people, right? Pluto is about change and transformation, but it can also be painful and it can be intense. And Saturn obviously is about karma and boundaries. So having these two kind of bad boys in your 7th house tells me that you're no stranger to kind of dealing sometimes with some difficult relationship issues. So when you're asking questions about you and another person, I just want to let you know that right now the North Node is coming into conjunction with your ascendant, which is how do I feel? What do I need? What do I want? What's best for me? And Jupiter is there as well. So it's about being positive and obviously optimistic about the future, but really turning the inward, you know, energy on yourself. 2 is you also have the South Node transiting your Pluto, which means that there is like a clearing going on. So if it's time to like cut and run from something that's not working, you're going to feel that pretty intensely for the next couple of weeks. And then finally, Pluto is squaring the nodes. So it says that something wants to or needs to change or transform about your career or your reputation. And it's also putting the pressure on your relationship. And then finally, you got a ton of placements here in your 5th house in Leo and also in Virgo. There'll be a Venus retrograde where you're going to reevaluate relationships all summer. And you have Saturn in opposition to your Sun and your Mercury. So you're reevaluating, is this guy right for me? You know, could this work? Like what's going on? And oppositions are relational. So you can, on one hand, be super focused on your needs and what you want and like trying to figure out what you love the next couple of months, but also know that if something is just not meshing, that if it's time to cut something loose, you'll be cutting it loose in the fall. Okay. So that's a lot going on with you. But when we look at your partner, who's August 9th, 1981, 6:40 a.m., and that was in West Memphis. Yeah. We look at the synastry, okay? So it's kind of obvious. The first thing that really kind of catches my eye is probably the fact that they do have Juno on your descendant. So that's great in a sense of they bring you the gift of partnership. They do have their moon conjunct your Mars. So that can be like a really, there's a lot of chemistry there, right? There's like a draw there. Like moon-Mars conjunctions between men and women are just like very intense and kind of sexual. The moon is very close to Uranus though. So that can kind of feel like there's a bit of like hot and cold going on. Mars conjunct your IC, so prompting you to want to kind of make changes emotionally within your inner world. And then they have Sun and Mercury in conjunction to your moon and also your Juno. On one hand, I actually really like these aspects, like a lot. I do think that there is definitely a draw between the two of you. Like this is not terrible astrology. You've got trines to your ascendant, and yes, you have a stellium of planets that's in, you know, Libra, technically in your 6th house. So there can be this feeling of, is that other person ready? And can we, you know, find the time for each other? And are there kind of like hangups and are there imbalances? But you can work through that. And when I flip this around and look at their chart, so they're a Leo rising, Sun in Leo, Moon in Sag, holy fire. And you know, they're a Leo, but they're kind of private, with all those planets in the 12th house, the Sun, Mercury, North Node. It's like they have trouble, I think, opening up. And I also feel like having that Uranus moon in the 4th square, I question whether or not there was like a lot of instability in their early childhood development in their home, if they moved around a lot, or if there was some conflict with like their mother. Because that's in the 4th house and because it squares the ascendant and all this Leo, that to me, it seems like this person has learned that it's safer to kind of keep to themselves, be on their own, and that like emotional turbulence is like something that's like overwhelming. So when it comes to relationships like with women, obviously, because Uranus rules their 7th house, Uranus and the moon is just kind of like, there can be like a draw and you feel like it's 2 steps forward, 1 step back, right? Now this person's going to have Venus retrograde on their ascendant into their 12th house. So they're reevaluating what they want, what they need, learning that they need to open up. So something that you might say to them is like, hey, you got your invisible armor on, or like your bubble up, like drop your wall, you know, like let's connect, and let them know that you want more of that. Leo risings have so much going for them, I think, in this period. I think that, you know, eclipses in the 10th house for career, and then also opportunities to go deeper into relationships is possible. But this is somebody who can definitely need their space, and they can kind of be evasive sometimes. So it is important that you give them space to reevaluate things and then kind of come back. Like the drama or the back and forth of, you know, a relationship, I would be careful. I would also say their south node is in Aquarius, and in the new year, you know, Pluto's going to cross that 1 degree. So it is kind of definitive that there is going to be a situation where there may be a partner that's like, I can't do this if you're not ready. Like, I want to move to the next level, right? All right, so putting your chart with theirs and looking at that synastry, it's great. I mean, all of your planets, you know, kind of move into their 1st house. So I love this. I've said this a lot. I said this in my my Astrology of You and Me. I taught an astrology 2-part webinar where I talk about what's good synastry and like what actually, you know, could work together. One of my favorite things is when you have a sun or a moon or a Venus that's in the 1st house or conjunct the ascendant, because that person who has those planets, okay, so that's you, is encouraging that person to kind of get on the life path of like the Leo rising, right? The drama, the passion, the creativity, the fun, you bring that in. So for you to have Moon on the ascendant, it's so nurturing. Juno on the ascendant is like partnership. Vesta is devotion. Sun Mercury is like, I'm here for you, like talk to me. Really, really great aspects. I think the challenge, okay, is that this squares his moon. And you also have Moon and Uranus in the 4th. So you got to kind of get in there and ask questions about like things in regards to his early relationships with family and things like that, because you might bring some of that out of him and he has to kind of deal with it. You also have Saturn on his IC. So there can be this sense of being like, are you in it or are you not? And it's really pushing him to think long and hard about long-term kind of domestic related things, you know, living together, buying homes, whether you start families. That'll be like another theme that can kind of come up here. I think both of you guys have, you know, your work cut out for you. The truth is that when I look at his astrology, it's about him being put in a situation where he needs to decide if he's going to step up to the plate, especially next year when he has his Uranus opposition in the 10th and he's got Jupiter and Uranus. It's like he should be catapulted into brand new dynamics in regards to his career, in his relationships. While they may be scary and new and different, they're supposed to actually be really positive and they're going to help him really change his future. When I look at your astrology, I feel like part of what's going on is you're having to learn to go, no, this is what I need, right? Pluto is now squaring your ascendant and your descendant. When that happens, whether it's at the top part of the chart or the bottom, Pluto is kind of raining down on both you and another person. So it's hard to find the balance because Pluto is saying, no, this has to change. And you're in Pluto square Pluto. So to me, it's kind of like a very all or nothing type of dynamic. It may represent you really sitting down and going, I need these things in my life. This is what I need. If I can get these things with you, awesome. I hope we can build this together. But like, these are my non-negotiables. And probably what will happen with the Venus retrograde is he's going to have to take time to integrate, and kind of a woman goes MIA for a little bit or isn't as available, and he has to really sit and think about like, okay, you know, am I going to potentially step up to the plate and really show up in regards to this relationship? Equally, you have a lot to gain here. Venus rules your 7th house and it's going to retrograde in your 5th, which means if somebody's meant to come back to you, or if somebody's meant to commit to you, or if somebody's meant to meet you, it will happen. Especially the fact that Venus is going to retrograde over your Juno, which is about marriage. I call that a Cinderella transit. And it's going to retrograde over your moon. So it can be a lot of like, okay, if we are going to be together, what are the next steps that we're taking? Because this is where I see my life going. And being really adamant about kind of laying things out and being like, here's my 5-year plan. And this is what I would like to do. Do you want to do this with me? And if he can't give you an answer, let him be. But I think you're both a victim of the astrology right now that's putting the pressure on both of you guys to change, both for you to get really clear about your non-negotiables and for him to realize that if he wants to participate, he has to show up. He can't be in and out and evasive and, going MIA or not responding or being in his head. He has to actively participate in the relationship. But the astrology really, it's not all that bad, right? Venus to Venus. You guys have Juno on angles. You have so many things that are working in your favor that I would say it is at least worth trying to see if there is a potential here, because I think it's actually pretty decent synastry, if you ask me. It's just, I feel like he's working some stuff out in regards to his family or the past, and he's learned to become more self-reliant and not really open up. So it's a matter of kind of expressing to him, can you do that with me, right? Can we talk about this and kind of be in this together? Hopefully that's helpful. The retrograde is a process, so it will be, pretty much you'll see July until about beginning of October. And then finally Venus is going to go into Virgo and you guys are going to have your Virgo return. Venus returns in Virgo. So to me, it would be like September going into October would be the time, right? Hopefully that's helpful. And you asked, when you say Aquarius is going to have a partner say, I can't do this, that's most likely going to be you, not him. It would be you because it's in his 7th house. Okay, so I got to plug a couple people in really quick. Give me just a minute, you guys. Once I get these plugged in, we can get going. Did I miss anyone? Thanks, Milika. I've got you. Teresa, Ann, Minod, and Jessica. So let me plug these in really quick. everybody. Thank you guys for your patience. I appreciate it. Got a nice little slideshow for you guys there. You can see all the fancy new candles. So we've got Jessica Z. Jessica is August 21st, 1981. That gives her a Leo sun, Virgo rising, and a moon in Taurus. She says, how are the North Node and South Node affecting my chart this summer? Is this a good time to see all my hard work in real estate investments pay off? Or would this be more about relationships? All right, so let's take a look. Good question. So she's asking about the North and the South Node. So as many of you guys know, they have been in Scorpio and Taurus for some time, and they're getting ready in the next month to shift into Aries and Libra. So essentially, like, when we see the nodes change signs, we really start to understand, like, what have we achieved? What did we learn? What have we been working on? What have we completed in the, Scorpio, Taurus area of our chart? So for you, whole sign wise, the North Node's been going through your 9th house. So there has been about a year and a half of learning and growth and philosophy. Maybe you traveled, maybe you took courses, maybe you found a mentor or a teacher. Anything like that could have happened. And remember that Taurus is also about pleasure. And then the South Node in Scorpio has been moving through your 3rd house. So there's been like this mental kind of mind dump that's been happening, like letting things go, changing cars, sometimes having issues in communication, and letting go maybe of like negative like thought patterning. So I just tell you this now because you may still see some of that stuff kind of fully work itself out when the nodes change. But of course you want to know about the nodes changing signs because you're going to be seeing the South Node going into Libra, and you've got this huge Libra stellium in your 2nd house. Okay, so yes, the South Node will affect you. I have a stellium in my 2nd house too, kind of makes us act kind of like Taurus-y. And when the South Node went through my 2nd house, I like started like getting rid of things. Like I like was regularly cleaning out my closet, like donating stuff. I was like regularly getting rid of things. It was actually happening right when I was in the midst of moving, and I had all of these things that I'd been collecting, and I was just like, I'm gonna get rid of all of this stuff. And I wanted to give it away, or some of the stuff that was like collectible, I sold. I got rid of a bunch of books and like things that I've had forever. So there's like a releasing energy that happens in the 2nd house with possessions. So keep that in the back of your mind. But Libra can be about relationships. Libra can also be about things that we once found beautiful or found valuable. So you might finally be ready to let old relationship stuff go. You might finally be able to let go of things that people gave you. You may see changes also in your financial situation. In my case, the South Node was actually kind of awesome because I kind of started to see, okay, I don't value certain things anymore. I don't have to be spending money on that. I'm not buying certain things or eating certain things anymore. And it really kind of propelled me more into the 8th house, which was, let's embrace change. Let's like let go of some things and like see what we gain from that. But it can be stuff that you sell and you could make money. It can also be tapping into your own personal talent and like ability to grow your resources and in turn bring more in. So yes, it can be good for business. You really want to pay attention to the eclipses as well, because you are going to have an eclipse that's going to be very close to your Pluto. And that's a big one. So that's going to be here at 21 degrees of Libra, and you have Pluto at 22. So that'll be October 14th, 2023. Okay, and what's interesting is when the South Node eclipse happens, or like when the South Node's in Libra in general, it sextiles, it sextiles Leo. So you're going to hear for Leos, maybe you're moving, you're getting a new car, maybe it's about, some unexpected trip, you're learning something new, you get a message or you hear from somebody from the past. Okay, maybe. But I think it's going to be for you, like really kind of tapping in with the sextiles between the Venus retrograde and trying to kind of rework something about your resources, reworking something about your values of some kind. So there's going to be something like that that's going to be going on here. Throughout the entire Venus retrograde, which I don't know what you know about that, but the Venus retrograde is going to start on your sun. So that tells me that there's like a huge personal shift that's about to begin. Venus is about obviously beauty, love, values, resources, pleasure, what tastes good, what smells good. Venus rules your second house of income and possessions. It also rules your ninth house, which is about traveling and philosophy. I could see you being willing to like, you know, spend more or spend less on travel. I could see you kind of look at the Venus retrograde and go, I just need to get away. I don't care how much it costs. Like, I need to go on a trip. And you might spend more than you would usually spend. Venus will start its retrograde on the 22nd of July at 28 degrees. So if this were me, I would really be paying attention to what's happening, especially like the 20th of July through what appears to be the beginning of August, because you're going to have Venus retrograde on your sun in the 12th house. It might be about soulmates. It might be about wrapping up old patterns in relationships. It might be that you suddenly unexpectedly hear from someone. It can be a little hot and steamy and tempting because the 12th house is hidden. And when that happens, the Venus transit is trining the North Node and it's sextiling the South Node. So we're actively clearing karma and relationships, and we're going deeper into getting in touch with ourselves. So if there's been relationships you didn't get closure, if you feel like you need to, you know, do some like past life healing, it might be a good idea to consider maybe like trying to do like a past life like meditation, or if you can find somebody who can do like a regression, that might be interesting. And just healing work with like Venus and doing like a lot of like offerings and connections and maybe meditations on Venus, that can be really helpful. I would also say, because the sun is about men and the 12th house, there can be unexpected connections with men, or, you know, things in regards to financial situations with men, gifts from men. And it's going to be rather significant because it's on your sun. So it'll come back again, and that'll be at the end of September. So I think maybe you're going through like a healing, and maybe you're going through like a whole shift in regards to like what your beliefs are on love, and like totally making changes to your self-esteem and your values in general, because that can be the second house as well. It's not uncommon when I see people who have Venus conjunct Saturn that they don't always feel lovable. And also Saturn in the second house can be like self-esteem related. And so it seems like there is like this theme in your life where you go through like heartbreak, or you go through some kind of like setback where you're like questioning your worth or questioning your capabilities. And then Jupiter kicks in and you're like, but what did I learn from this? And then Pluto is like, I conquered, I made a change, I became more powerful, like I was born again. So that stellium can literally be read with the first planet and then the last planet, and you can see how you respond to changes with your finances, your food, your resources, things like that. So something is going to kind of come up for reevaluation. Like, does it always have to be like this big, you know, change or transformative thing? No. You might realize that rather than dealing with the drama and like all of the ways that it affects you emotionally or with your self-esteem, that you're like, I'm just ready to let it all go. So that seems to be really prominent. The fact that the retrograde's on your sun, it's in a sextile, it's in a trine. And then as planets are coming into your first house and it's making oppositions, there's like this awareness of like what your worth is and what you need, and that you're no longer willing to kind of settle. And you may find that during the Mercury retrograde, you're telling some people like, no, I'm good, that you would almost rather, you know, kind of keep to yourself rather than like make sacrifices for people who can't meet you halfway, right? If that makes sense. It's also going to be trining your Neptune. So fire trines are super active. So it can definitely be also about, you know, like romantic trips abroad and going places and meeting people, or going back home and connecting with someone, and like it being very healing, especially when it comes to things in regards to like intimacy, right? The North Node going through the 8th house isn't just like, oh, you're going to get inheritance. It's like, oh, you have to deal with tax problems, and you have to tell people about your fears, and you have to talk about your credit score, and you have to like, you know, where we fall in love is the 5th house. Where we commit to other people is the 7th house. But I actually believe that the 8th house is the house of merger. So after you've fallen in love and you've committed, then you have to talk about, okay, you know, how much money do we have in savings, and how do we deal with insurance, and what are your traumas, and like, let's unpack all of that. Like the 8th house really is the house that I feel like is more symbolic of the marriage, the alchemical union. than the 7th house, which is, yeah, we're together, or the 9th house, which is, well, we got married. The 8th house is very relational. Like, not a lot of people realize that. So where you're going to benefit is like, you can totally change and transform your resources, your home. You can definitely like go through a huge emotional shift as well, where you're more positive and optimistic about what the future holds. And at the very least, it's going to be pretty transformative. And if you're hoping to like also make changes in regards to like how you view yourself and your appearance, I mean, the fixed star Regulus is conjunct your sun, okay? So I know for sure, I'm not just looking at your picture, you have an insane head of hair. It probably like long, thick, golden, or kind of like honey colored, because that's Regulus, it's gold. And in the 12th house, you probably should have been an actress, because that's a little kind of like bougie and dramatic and like mysterious. And 12th house people don't want to be seen. They want to hide. So as Venus is going retrograde over your sun, there can be like this really awesome time to really kind of like focus on self-love and like connecting to Venus in a very spiritual way, and doing like offerings for Venus and connecting with her, and hoping that she will come and like help you restore that sense of feeling good enough, feeling beautiful, feeling attractive, accepting self-loving oneself. And the 12th house can be healing centers as well. So it can be about going and doing work where you can be working with a therapist, or working with a physical therapist, or working with a healer, or working with a shaman that can go and kind of help you work all of this stuff out. But there is a lot of energy here that wants to come forward. When something retrogrades from the ascendant into the 12th house and then it comes back, which we're going to see with Mercury, it's about like a grand reveal. So in your mind, I want you to think about like that September going into October time, where by then maybe you are feeling more confident in your skin. And it's because you've been doing that work, and it's because you're loving yourself for how you look, and maybe you're dressing a little bit more kind of like bougie and like really kind of putting yourself out there and playing the role, right? Because that's what 12th house Leo is. So hopefully that's helpful. I'm excited to see how that plays out for you, Jessica. Sending you lots of good vibes, and happy early birthday. So we've got Minod, September 14th, 89, 2:25 a.m. AR. Okay, so Fort Smith AR. Going through a midlife crisis, learning astrology, tough times, etc. If destiny is written, so what does the stars say about mine? What am I here to learn in this life, and what is my mission? Oh, I like that. Something about those like midlife, quarter life crisis that really just kind of, they humble you, right? You're a little old to be, excuse me, you're a little old. You're a little young to be going through a midlife crisis. I'm just gonna like correct you on that, okay? You're not old enough unless you plan on only making it to about 60 years old. This is not your midlife crisis. So for starters, I think part of what's going on, to be honest with you, is like you're kind of getting your ass kicked a little bit with Saturn on your moon. That is a difficult transit, because there is a sense of trying to make sense of what your purpose is. The moon is actually connected to fortune. It's also about your home. It's about your emotions. It's about your connection to family. So we call this the Sati Santi, 7 years of Saturn. Saturn coming into conjunction with your moon. It's on top of your moon, and then it's kind of working off of your moon. So it can be a difficult time. Your moon is in Pisces, which is very spiritual, and it's in the 8th house, which is about change and transformation of home, change and transformation of fortune when it comes to other people's resources. And honestly, 8th house is like, how do you learn to make lemonade? How do you fish something out of the trash and turn it into treasure? How do you recycle something? How do you take somebody else's, misfortune and turn it into something that can work for you? That's what the 8th house is. So Saturn's been on your North Node this last year. Now it's on your moon, which in itself is a difficult transit, but it's in conjunction to your chart ruler. So I guess I feel inclined to tell you, like, this will pass. You will feel this pass, especially as we come into the new year. Things are going to shift. And I also feel like, because the nodes are connected to Cancer and the nodes are squaring Pluto, there is one of two things that are going to start kind of manifesting in your life here in the immediate near future. One is it's putting the pressure on really changing and transforming your relationship with other people, okay? And so the 7th house can be therapists, it can be astrologers, it can be partners, business partners. Capricorn can be business related. So there can be the sense of you being like, what am I supposed to be doing in relationships? And, you know, what is the direction that I'm supposed to be going in terms of who I work with, or who I work for, or, you know, the types of people that I'm in relationships with, okay? And you're gonna feel that pretty intensely for the next like month or two. What you have to gain is eclipses in your 10th house and growth, which appears to be coming through your career and your status if you're making the changes that you need in relationships. Like, I love the Pluto square in your 7th for going and actually like talking to a recruiter about work and finding the job that could be best for you, or the occupation that works best for you. I love the Pluto square for going and meeting with an astrologer and getting a reading and getting feedback about how you navigate this time. I love this for going and talking to a therapist about trying to work through old patterns and relationships that aren't suiting you, if any of these things are coming up. Life purpose, though, in my mind, is both a combination of the North Node, the 10th house, and also the 6th house, right? So when I look at your North Node natally, it's in Aquarius and it's in the 8th house, which means you are here to transform. You are here to learn about endings and beginnings and resources that stem from other people. Ruled by Uranus or Saturn, depending on how you look at that, and that's in your 6th house, which means you're gonna have lots of change in your career. It's gonna happen. Your daily routine, maybe it's your health, maybe it's the, you know, the place that you like working. It's gonna change a lot in your lifetime, and you were born with a stellium of planets in Capricorn. That's a strong 89-90 signature. Which I can see with Uranus, which one's freedom, Saturn, which one's structure, Neptune, which is kind of confused. There is like a sense of, I think, still trying to figure out like what you want to be when you grow up and how you can have something that is consistent, but on your terms, if that makes sense. I see a lot of people with Capricorn stelliums that are, especially like this, that are self-employed, or they're entrepreneurs, or they're inventors. They do something that's kind of unusual. And your 10th house, Aries, is ruled by Mars, and you have Mars conjunct your sun. So you can talk, you can write, you can travel. I feel like you're also somebody who is a motivator with Sun conjunct Mars. And so I wonder if there's some future for you in writing, publishing, broadcasting, podcasting, storytelling, something like that, right? Otherwise, what you're going to fall into with a chart like this is like filing paper and, you know, being a clerk somewhere, or maybe being someone who like works on things with your hands, maybe welding, maybe you're in the medical profession, because Sun Mars can be like medical related. It depends, obviously. And then we look at your 6th house, which is Sagittarius, which is about belief and education and philosophy, ruled by Jupiter, and Jupiter is in the 12th house. To me, it seems like you'd rather be working in a private space than like showing up into an office. If you lean into that stellium in your 3rd house, it feels like if you have like a routine where you're either working on something, writing something, speaking about something regularly, that's gonna create a little bit more ease in this chart. You were also born on like the eve before a full moon. So the fact that your moon is in Pisces and your sun is in Virgo, it's coming into a full moon between the 3rd and also the 9th house, which tells me like you're gonna have lots of changes in what you're learning in your belief system in this lifetime. That's gonna constantly be turning over. I hear you when you're saying you're having the crisis, but I actually really like the fact that eclipses taking place in your 10th house are gonna start pushing you to change. And like learning how to perfect something that does interest you, and learning how to develop the skills that you need to develop to be able to make some of the changes that you're hoping to make. Right now, it can probably feel a little emotionally heavy with Saturn on your moon. Something that can really help with that is doing some yoga. Definitely in your case, meditation by the beach, or listening to waves, or anything relating to the ocean, because you're a Pisces moon. Saturn in the 8th can also be about like sobering financial situations, sobering situations also in regards to, you know, family related things or resources that can come up here as well. And You're in a nice time right now, even though it may not seem like it, before you get to like 2024 and 2025 where Saturn opposes your sun and also your Mars. So just a word to the wise, taking everything that I'm saying to you into consideration. You're in a 10th house career year, which means Mars transits are going to majorly push you along when it comes to making changes with your purpose. The fact that Mars is coming into Virgo here pretty soon is actually really great. I think I would be paying attention to what is driving you or what interests are coming up for you around the mid-August period, because Mars is going to conjunct your sun and then you're going to have your Mars return. And it's going to give you the opportunity to reevaluate and take action in regards to where you could be doing something differently when it comes to your career by nurturing your natural talents rather than working against them, if that makes sense, right? And if you're doing this year, it's going to be really helpful because I think you're not going to be delaying the inevitable, which is really kind of getting to the core of, I want to walk, I want to teach, I want to write, I want to speak. Like there should be some natural impulses that come with all these planets that you have in your 3rd house in Virgo. And I feel like there is a way to be able to make something of that. It's just a matter of going and really developing those skills. And also having the mindset, because the 3rd house can be the mindset. And sometimes when the sun and Mars is there, there's a sense of impatience. It's like, I want it now, I want it now. What you're going to learn with the Saturn oppositions is that that's going to come with time and the willingness to, start carving out time to be focusing on these things that might interest you a little bit more, right? So hopefully that's helpful for you and helping you kind of navigate, giving you some food for thought for this next year. Good luck. We've got Anne. And where was she? There we go. Okay. So Anne's question was, was there a particular question for you here, Anne? I'm not sure. I saw that you signed up, you sent that info, but I don't see a particular question. Let me know. What's up, Susan? Celebrate with a reading. I love that. Well, that full moon's going to do some stuff with your chart too. It's going to be right here next to your node, and you're in your Saturn's return. Hey, Anne. If you guys have not already, please give me a thumbs up and like the stream. I would appreciate it. Next on deck, we have Teresa and Milika. You sent one? Donation. Let's see. Where was your question? And Pluto energy, I get to visualize. Okay, let's see. I see you sent it. I'm just not sure what your question was. There we go. Where will my abundance come from? We've read at my firstborn Leo inheritance should grandma move. Interested in where financial security and abundance will come from. I'm a cheerful worker. Okay, gotcha. Sorry to make you scroll back. I got her. Okay, so let's see what's up with Anne's abundance. Obviously, that's a hot topic with Saturn retrograding back into your Placidus 2nd house. So, no, I got it. Don't worry. Let me know if there's something else that you would rather know. But Saturn is about like limitations and boundaries and like delays, right? So if you're going to be looking at money, you want to look at your 2nd house, and you're in your 2nd Saturn's return, your natal Saturn is in Pisces. So you're right in the midst of having one of several returns. Saturn hit this first, I think like in April. Yeah, so it first hit in April. It's retrograde now, so we're reevaluating where is it going? Is money coming in? What do I need to reassess with my finances? and it's going to hit your natal Saturn again. That'll be in September going into October, November going into December, and then Saturn's going to move forward. So you're going to pretty much be done with your second Saturn return technically in the new year, when Saturn is at least 10 degrees away and Saturn moves into your Placidus third. So things should get easier in regards to your resources, right? But what is your natal Saturn like? It is in opposition to Uranus, which means that there has always been this theme in your life about money coming, money going. Money coming, money going, and where you have to make changes and limitations and how that impacts other people or how that impacts your joint resources or so on and so forth. When you have Saturn standing in opposition to Uranus, where you want commitment and other people are just kind of like willy-nilly with their money, it's annoying. And when you have Saturn in opposition to Pluto, where you're like, I need more, and people kind of jerk you around a little bit, it gets agitating. So the Saturn return, in a way, is playing off of that right now. And it's kind of showing you where there's been some of these imbalances. But to work with that, you want to actually look at sextiles or trines to see where it's helping you. So Saturn is actually coming into a sextile with Jupiter. And that tells me that there is room for growth and expansion on the home front and also with resources. So if there's talk about where is the money coming from, it can be relating to real estate. It can also, for a Sag whole sign chart, be about communications and documents with relatives and having to actually like hire people to kind of help you through the process of making sure that you get the money that's owed to you. Now in the background, you're also going to be having a Venus retrograde that will be taking place in your Placidus 8th. And Venus is about money and resources. It's going to go retrograde, which means other people are reevaluating what they have, what they're going to give. This can be an extended period of several weeks into months where it's like there's a slowdown in regards to people paying you, or a back and forth about an inheritance, or like, you know, money that should be coming your way. My view on this is, because your Sag rising and Capricorn is intercepted, once again, that means that Capricorn and Cancer or Saturn transits are like a blind spot for you. And so I do think that in your case, you know, documents, things that are written, things in regards to like commitments and having everything like out on paper is really important. Because this is connecting to your whole sign third house energy in relation to home and family. It would not surprise me also if, you know, in the midst of this Venus retrograde, you're like, okay, you know, do I have to go and see a professional and somebody who can kind of help me with this, at least legally, kind of see this through so I can get what I'm like entitled to. Now, money that's going to like show up, that's more going to be either Uranus or it's going to be Saturn. And so something that I'm noticing is that you are going to have Jupiter and Uranus meeting in this next year in your 5th house. So changes that are going to be happening in regards to your relationship with money and like younger people. And, you know, the Venus retrograde is kind of like it's kind of like coming into a square. So it's feeling locked. So I'm wondering, like, who has control of the resources? Is it like younger relatives? Are there other people that you're going back and forth with in regards to some of this stuff? Because there may be some pushback that's coming from like younger related people. Also, I'm watching Pluto come into your 2nd house in this next year, and it's coming into a square with Mercury. So that's another conflict over resources and home or property with younger people. I'm watching the North Node come in conjunction with your Jupiter, which is going to get activated here in the end of July, and that could be bringing in more resources and things that you need, and you're going to receive trines. So I also wonder if it's possible that there can be like some negotiation and you guys come to an agreement on something, and it's like, okay, we'll make this agreement. Here's what we'll give you, and this is what we want, and you have to decide whether or not it's going to appease you. And probably I would be looking at like money related things to be coming up when you have the full moon that's in Aquarius in your 2nd house around August 1st. Okay, so that's going to be a full moon completion ruled by Saturn. Saturn's retrograde, also connected to Uranus, and it's going to come into a slight square with Uranus. So it tells me that like the showdown in regards to some of this financial stuff is going to be in August. And when you see a harmonious aspect between Uranus and Venus, or Uranus and the sun, things are going to get a little bit easier. So it's kind of looking like as you're getting into September, October, possibly you've been able to kind of like remedy this and kind of come to an understanding, right? If that makes sense. And yeah, also just Sag rising. I've heard a lot of Sag risings, even the later degrees are just like, oh, home stuff, family stuff, like expenses. And yes, I've heard a lot of this, and I would say you might want to reflect back on your first Saturn return. Think back to when you were like 29 to 31, when, you know, likely there was some financial situation going on where you're feeling a little strapped, and it was like a lot of like what you need versus what other people will or will not give you. And obviously you got through it. And in this situation, the sextiles that you have to Jupiter is like really helpful. So it tells me that certain relatives will work with you. And it might be about kind of finding ways to kind of make an improvement for everybody and kind of agree so everybody gets a little bit of piece of the pie, so everybody's happy and you guys can make a decision and you can move forward, right? But look for that to be going on the beginning of August. Hopefully that's helpful for you, Anne. Thank you for your support. I appreciate it. I've got Teresa, who is January 1st, 73. And she is a Cancer rising, sun in Capricorn. Whoa, your chart really interests me with what's going on right now. And your moon is in Sagittarius. Teresa, are you here? Are you here? So I love this. This is really exciting. So Teresa, there is a Cazimi that's kind of happening over like the next 12 hours. That's right on your ascendant. Okay, so this is where Mercury pulls ahead of the sun, and it's about relaying a significant or an important message. It can be something secretive, so it could even be this reading, because usually it's about somebody telling you something. Not many people know this, but Mercury is actually associated with divination. Mercury is the diviner, right? He is able to be the receiver of the messages. Yeah, so Mercury Cazimis I love. And it's about something kind of being uncovered because Mercury rules your 12th house. Okay, so it's happening on your ascendant. So the long and short of it is, please pay attention to your intuition the next couple days. This can also be about you having a hunch or having a feeling, or you having something that you want to share with somebody but you're not sure, or getting ready to make a significant announcement. You may have a download of some kind also tonight into like tomorrow. And then secondly, this full moon is right on your sun. So those two syncing up, it's like so cool that it's like bang on with the astrology. Are you contemplating and thinking about like saying something to someone, having a conversation with a partner? Have you been like reevaluating something before you like talk to somebody and give them an answer of some kind? Because the full moon in your 7th house is some kind of completion or something kind of happening in regards to relationships to other people, but it's on your sun. So it's going to be about like your involvement in a relationship or in a business deal or in a transaction, or about whether or not, you know, you still want to be connected in a relationship. And with Sun and Mercury sitting on your ascendant, it's like you're about to make a decision. You're about to tell somebody like, what's up? If you feel like expanding on that, but that really kind of piqued my interest. Now, a full moon on your sun in general is like you're kind of in the spotlight. So there is something about like your participation in something in regards to relationships with other people. Now, Capricorn can be about your responsibility for others. It can be about your relationship to a client. It can be about giving somebody some kind of feedback about a relationship. But whatever is going on right now, it's like you have to listen to your gut. You have to listen to your intuition. Really, that's the only way that this is going to work. Nobody's going to be able to tell you otherwise, because to me, it seems like you've already kind of made up your mind. And like I said earlier in this live, just after the moon will oppose Mercury, okay, in the morning on July 3rd, so hard to communicate. It will also square your Chiron. And then we're going to see the moon come into conjunction with Pluto. So it's like you might say something to someone and then it totally changes and transforms in some way. I'm also an astrologer. I can't see that. And reader also. Okay. So the interactions that you're going to have with clients, maybe that could be part of it. I wonder if this is going to be about, somebody saying to you, oh, I really want to connect with you. And, the full moon in the 7th house is highlighting the fact that a lot of people are wanting to come and see you. And so it can be great for business because the 7th is your marketplace. And it can be about like making some money, right? Usually you're in high demand when there's a full moon on your sun. Because 7th house is other people. So you're bringing other people in, basically. The other thing that I would say, just to kind of keep in the back of your mind, is that Saturn is coming into a trine with the planets in your 1st house right now. So it's about learning more about spirituality. It can be about marketing. It can be about perfecting some kind of practice. And I noticed that Saturn is kind of slightly in a square to your Mars and your Moon and your Neptune. So you're really like working with like teachers, mentors, people who can kind of guide you, and really fine tune and perfect some of your skills. So, saying that you're still kind of like learning, in regards to some of this stuff makes sense. I do feel like this might be a year where you're working at it all year until you start to see Saturn come out of that square with those planets in the next year or two. And you're really feeling maybe more confident and you're adding more tools to your toolbox in regards to what services you can actually offer some of your clients. But I can tell you the events of the next couple days are going to be really important. Pay attention to who you meet. Pay attention to the interactions that you might have with either clients or even potential relationships, because that seems very prominent in my mind. And being a Cancer rising, you're very impacted by lunar cycles. So, full moons and lunar eclipses impact you. You happen to have your North Node in Capricorn. So when planets are going through Capricorn or when the moon's going through Capricorn, it's going to hit on that North Node about where you're going, and then it's going to hit on Jupiter, which is about expanding. So if you've been studying your chart, part of your lessons here is to work with other people. Capricorn 7th house. The sun is providing some kind of service, which people pay you for. The North Node is about what's destined, and it's about growing into that. And then Jupiter is about bringing you some kind of expansion or some kind of abundance. And it's work. That's a lot of work in the 7th house, where you're working with people all of the time. And the 7th house is also about counselors. So it's interesting that you're coming into the full moon, you're getting a reading from somebody else. That's how this can work as well. It's not just about your services. It can be you going I need some insight too. What's happening here? And so the full moon in the 7th, I actually really like, because I feel like it gives you the opportunity to promote what you're doing. You can promote services under that particular moon. 7th house, 9th house, 10th house. These are the houses that I like to have aspects in or transits in. 7th house might be more, hey, here's a new product, right? Versus the 9th house, which is like a marketing campaign to promote something or a course that I'm doing. 10th house, it's I completed this thing, right? That's why I chose, this incoming full moon to launch my candles, was because I was all right, cool. It's going to, be in conjunction to all of my stuff. And it's been brewing for a while, wanting to get back into doing this. But also at the same time, it was that big kind of climax. So there is an interesting dynamic going on the next couple of days between you and other people, and what other people bring you and the connection you have with them and what advice they may give you, right? Because the moon is going to be very close to Jupiter. And I think you're learning also to either make changes in your belief system. And so there's some stuff that's kind of changing there, or shifts in regards to what you believe you can do or how you can work. So when you have all that Sag in the 6th house, you're woo, free time, just chilling, doing whatever I want to do. And you're actually learning that structure can be a good thing, really honing in on specific things that you offer in terms of modalities can be a good thing. Specializing and getting training can be a good thing. And also that there needs to be a refinement of your schedule. So there's not all that wild and kind of being out and about all the time. You're really kind of getting keyed in on, some of your spiritual practices, maybe your routines, right? But I love this this full moon for you. On your sun, it tells me that it's been something that you've been waiting to see blossom. So if you've been waiting for, a particular connection to somebody, business or romantically, that can be very significant. enjoy it. Circle back. Let us know what happens. You can leave us a comment. I'd love to hear because it's pretty specific for you. So we've got Milika. Okay, so I know she's here. I saw her pop in. I just gotta find you, so I apologize. I'm scrolling. Let's see. I'm glad I was able to help. All right, so where is Milika? I'm not seeing a particular question, so if you have it, shoot it over to me. Maybe it's just me. Maybe I'm just not seeing it. Relationships, Venus retrograde. Okay, cool, gotcha. So let's pull your chart up. August 11th, 79. Oh, was this correct? Now I'm double questioning myself. August 11th, 78, 9:58 a.m. in Brooklyn. Why am I double questioning this? Those of you guys who are just tuning in, sorry you guys missed the readings, but we'll be back next week. Well, thank you. I appreciate it. So I've got you here, if this is the right year. Okay. Libra rising, sun in Leo, and your moon is in Scorpio. All right, so she wants to know about Venus retrograde. She wants to know about the summer. Girl. Oh man, I love that you have Sun conjunct Lilith. That's a little bit of that's a Vixen energy there. And you're gonna have like a Lilith return with Venus retrograding on your Sun. So let's talk about it. So essentially, you know, relationships in general, that's gonna be more relating to Aries, 7th house Mars. What you have going in your favor is that over the next couple of weeks, we're going to see the North Node move into Aries. So it's going to start what's going to be about a 1.5 year transit of the North Node going through your 7th house, and you're going to see eclipses. So what that means is that, you know, very significant people can pop in during this time. 7th house is social. It's about meeting others, connecting with others. So if you're looking for a relationship, it's a good indication that somebody's going to pop in. That transit only happens every 18-ish years. So you can think back to what happened, you know, 18 years ago, who you met at that time, what was going on. It's very common that when I see people meet like significant life partners, they're having eclipses in their 7th house. It can be North Node or South Node, but I have noticed that the North Node does tend to bring new people. In the midst of all that, Mars, we have to watch as well, because once the North Node goes into Aries, we want to be seeing where Mars is, because that's going to tell me how you can meet people, where you're meeting people. So for the next month, Mars is still technically in your Placidus 11th house. So look at all these planets in the 11th house. The sun's going to be there, Mercury, Venus, Mars. Venus will retrograde. For a Libra rising chart, it's about 3 months of focusing more on socializing, connecting with other people, reconnecting to friends that you haven't seen in a while, like getting back out there. Venus obviously will retrograde over your sun, so it can be about reconnecting with like a male friend. And it can be about reconnecting with like the one that got away. That can happen in the 11th house. The sun can also just be friends in general, so there can be like celebrations and parties and get-togethers, and you're also going to be reevaluating what your goals are, right? When it comes to maybe your relationships with other people. It can also be about like ways that you're wanting to make more money. So like a lot of Libra risings are going to be putting in a lot of like extra work when it comes to some of this stuff. And the Venus retrograde going over your sun is also really interesting because it does tell me that like somebody significant might return back to you. So Venus is going to retrograde back over your sun, and that's going to be on the 15th of August. And then you're going to see it come back again when it's direct. And that's going to be right around September 22nd. Give a day or two, right? And what I'll tell you is when this happens, when it's direct and it's still in shadow, but when it's finally done with its retrograde, Venus and Juno will sit on your sun, which means probably it's going to bring in a very significant person that you're supposed to meet. You might meet somebody at a wedding or at like an engagement party or like a birthday celebration or something that could end up being your future partner. And when that connection is happening, you're also coming off of your Mars return. You have Mars in a sextile to Venus. I would be really paying attention in the end of September. And it's weird because I've seen sometimes in retrogrades, like people think that it has to be the retrograde that somebody shows up. Sometimes I've seen it happen in the pre or the post shadow. Like I think about situations in my life where like I've had a Venus retrograde or a Mars retrograde connecting to my 7th house or connecting to my Venus, and it's always been at the end. It was almost like all the shit came up during the retrograde, so I would make the changes that I needed to make to then start that job, meet that person, like whatever. So in your case, that might actually be what happens here. I also think that, you know, when we get into the fall, we're getting into eclipses, and you're going to get to see a full moon that is not an eclipse, okay, because it's not close enough to the North Node here. But you're going to see a full moon that's going to be right on your descendant, and the sun is on your ascendant, conjunct your Mars, ruler of the 7th house, which means most likely you will have met someone that you're like, yes, let's do this. And you're going to start to proceed forward, I think, in making big decisions and making big moves in regards to relationships. This is ruled by Mars, and Mars is in your 1st house. It's coming into conjunction with the sun. So you're learning to kind of like, in some way, put your needs aside and focus more on like others. And that's naturally what happens when the South Node goes through the 1st house. All Libra risings are going to have that because it's kind of projecting you into your 7th house of being like, quickly move forward with other people. You don't always have to be like super pleasant and like, you know, sacrificing stuff all of the time, but there is a need to kind of like go and meet others. And I think North Node in Aries can be working out with others, initiating relationships. You might notice that you're more likely to like walk right up to people and like start talking to them and like getting to know them. And you just might feel like you're kind of going after relationships a little bit more strongly in the fall, right? And that's, once again, when Venus is still in shadow. Actually, when this full moon happens, you've got Venus and Juno still in conjunction to your sun. So the Venus retrograde, I think, is just about getting back out there and like having fun and meeting people and allowing the right people to kind of come back in if you're meant to reconnect with them. And I also feel like it's probably going to be a huge turning point where you're realizing that, you know, because you have Saturn natally in your 11th, you have to kind of do what's best for you. So, you know, Venus will square off with Uranus several times. I've told a lot of my Libra risings, be careful, because friends can come in and they want to be more than friends. And there can definitely like be a sense of, you know, people like wanting to have open relationships or like wanting to kind of like come in and maybe they're not totally happy. So make sure that the people that you're hanging out with, you know, if they want something more, that relationship is potentially being defined. And you have clarity about what's going on because Venus is squaring your 5th house Lord. And you want to make sure also that there is an involvement with other people because the 11th house can be about other people kind of getting into the mix as well, if that makes sense, right? But I love these transits for you. It's definitely going to bring somebody in 100%, especially because the nodes are squaring Juno. So you got a Juno aspect here, a Juno aspect here. And go back and look at what happened the last time that you had these particular transits when the North Node was going through your 7th house. Just to give you a little bit of insight. So it looks like that was happening at the end of 2004, going into 2005, and then 2006. So that whole, you know, let's say beginning of 2005 into 2006, that was the last time that you had that. And back then there was some other stuff going on that I do think was making it more challenging. You were coming in your Saturn's return, and you know, you had some other stuff that was kind of impacting, and I think keeping you from being able to kind of see relationships solidify. But this time it's a little bit different because you have much better aspects, right? And the Venus retrograde's trining the North Node this time around. So the more that you're socializing, the more likely you're going to have a friend that's going to be like, let me introduce you to someone. And then something just kind of clicks, right? So circle back. Let us know what happens. I'm excited to see what happens. And you got Neptune coming up on your descendant. So just make sure that you're seeing things clearly. Watch out for Neptunian people that can kind of project what they want you to see, right? Hopefully that's helpful for you. I think that is everybody, if I'm correct with my list here. I know some people join us live. I hope to see you guys soon. We're here every Friday. We're here 5 o'clock p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern. Next week, we're going to be doing tarot readings. And then 2 weeks from now, we're going to be doing astrology readings. You guys can always find the links. I put them on my community tab, usually a day or two before we post them. So if you guys want to get in the queue so you don't have to wait, or if you want a guaranteed reading that you come back and view, you guys can always do that in advance. And obviously, thank you guys so much for hanging out with us. And those of you guys who continue to watch my stuff and support me, I appreciate it so very much. I'll be back on Sunday. We're going to talk about all the astrology for July of 2023. Oh, I just got done filming the video. It's going to be a busy month, and I'm excited to see what some of these Pluto squares bring, because I feel like all of us are going to be getting cooked. So definitely join me if you want to hear me chat about that on Sunday, and we will be back, obviously, next week with more readings. So those of you guys who I missed, I will see all of you guys next week. Thank you for joining me. Enjoy the rest of your Friday night, and I will see you guys soon. Take care.